This is the first universal Hindu temple in the Western world and is an iconic architectural landmark here in San Francisco. It was founded in 1900 by Swami Vivekananda, a disciple of the Indian sage Sri Ramakrishna. The architecture on the roof of the temple symbolized the belief in Vedanta that the truth is one. As one Swami put it, the temple may be considered a combination of a Hindu temple, a Christian church, a Mohammedan mosque, a Hindu monastery, and an American residence. Swami Vedananda is the minister here and of the Vedanta Society in Northern California. Advaita Vedanta is a monistic philosophy that predates both Christianity and Buddhism. It holds that the ultimate reality is to be found by yourself, in yourself, as yourself. Today, Swami Vedananda, senior monk at the Vedanta Society, will talk on the Bhagavad Gita Revisited.
The Bhagavad Gita Revisited. It shouldn't actually be, that's really not an appropriate title. The Bhagavad Gita Revisited, it should be constantly visited. So it should be something that is very natural. It's nothing we should call our attention to, oh, now I'm studying the Gita again. Because the Gita is the essence of the Upanishad. It itself is called an Upanishad. It has that status among the primary foundation blocks of Vedanta, of the Hindu thought. The Vedas, that is the Upanishads, are considered one of the foundation blocks, then the Gita is considered another, and then there's a third called the Brahma Sutras, which is an analysis of the Upanishads. So the Bhagavad Gita, and also at the end of each chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there's a phrase that is chanted that identifies the Gita as one of the essential, as an Upanishad, as having the same stature as an Upanishad. So what is it that is being inculcated here? And I think we can point to three primary ideas. And the first idea that is mentioned is stand up, do something, courage, be self-motivated. And it's phrased in a very strong way. But this Swami Vivekananda actually considered this to be the primary or the most important introductory verse in the Gita. And if you hear it in Sanskrit, it'll make you shiver a little bit, because Sri Krishna, in responding to his disciple Arjuna's dejection at the fact that he's going to have to undertake this battle which everyone had tried their very best to avoid. Anyway, it had come to pass. So, shirking his sense of obligation, his sense of doing what was right, he wanted to simply retire from the whole thing. This is too complicated, this is too difficult, this is too cruel, this is too all possible negatives. And so he tells Krishna, I don't want to go any farther than this. I want to go off into the mountains. Essentially, the implication was, I want to go off into the Himalayas and meditate on God. Which is, of course, what everyone advises. Yes, go to the Himalayas, meditate. That is the thing. That is how one achieves. Ideally, that the Himalayas can be your own, your own retreat somewhere. Anyway, retire into that solitude and don't bother about the details of what's going on in this world. Just the important thing is God alone is the reality, and therefore that is what the only thing that's really necessary that we should pay attention to. So he wanted to say, no, this is too messy a situation, I want to give this up, I cannot possibly go through with it. Although they had tried to avoid this for a long time, but now it had come to pass that this was the only possibility that remained, and so they were on the field of battle ready to engage in this. And he said, well, this is too messy, this session. But he had gone through the whole process up to this point. And then on the actual, at the actual time the conflict was about to begin, he sees that in front of him is an array of superior forces, and he decides, no, I don't want to bother with this. So Krishna shocks him. Kutastva kashmanamidam. Doesn't that make your, doesn't that give you the shivers when you hear a strong rebuke like this? Kutastva kashmanamidam vishale sampastitam. It's all full of sounds, explosive sounds. Krishna is telling Arjuna, whence comes this mean faint-heartedness? It is not worthy of you, he goes on and explains. It's not worthy of you, it's not leading to a higher destiny for you. You should give up this mean faint-heartedness and go straight to do what has been prepared for over a long period of time. This has been prepared. This is the only solution that has been found. This has to be gone through. Why at this point, at the very last minute, essentially the very last second, is you prepare the way all the way up to this point, and then finally you say, well, no, I want to go into the forest and sit down quietly under a tree very comfortably and meditate, supremely aloof from everything. So this is also said to all of us. This is not, if it were just Arjuna, we could enjoy it like a movie or a novel. We need not worry that this has any message for us, but this is a message for us. Because this is actually the human condition, that very few people see their way through this maze of the world, through the pattern of their lives. And so the tendency to shirk one's responsibilities, the tendency not to face unpleasant situations which should have been faced, that is something that is a message for all of us. And because it's a message for all of us, the attitude that Sri Krishna asks Arjuna to take is also crucial for all of us. Now, what is the first thing that Sri Krishna does to solve this situation, to urge Arjuna to face that situation rather than to run away from it? The first thing he tells him is also the first thing we should remember. And what is that? That is the basic message of the Upanishads. That spiritual reality, God, the infinite, the eternal, whatever name you give to it, is the only thing that exists. There is nothing else. And we, the thing that we call we, the thing that we nourish so much, we give it excellent food, yes we should. We take care of it, keep it nice and warm, yes we should. We do all sorts of things in order to make this body comfortable, to make this mind comfortable. We do all of these things because we're afraid to really face the ultimate reality that these scriptures are telling us, that there is nothing but God. And the aim of life should be to realize that. The aim of life should be to become absorbed in that. And then whatever difficulties we have to undergo, whatever harsh and unpleasant things we have to do in this world, because these things have been prepared for, that has to be faced. But because it might be dangerous, or because it might be unpleasant, or it might have various other negative aspects, that is not the reason to give up doing what we ought to do. And what is it that we ultimately ought to do? What is the, if you look behind the surface of things, what we ought to do is to remember, not only remember, to realize that that spiritual reality alone exists. This is an astounding message, and it's the central message of the Gita, which is phrased in so many ways and so many chapters, approached in so many details. But the basic message is God alone exists. God being the infinite, the eternal, the foundation, the background, the sustenance of everything, whatever name you want to give it, however you want to describe it. Every experience of ours is an experience of God. That is the statement. Now then you say, well, that is something very difficult to understand. I see people and I see things and I see obligations. And the only thing that I don't see is that entity you call God, or the Spirit, or the infinite, the eternal. That is the only thing that I do not see. I see so many other things of so many different types. And I feel obligated to all these things in various ways. I'm connected with them, I'm connected to my family in a certain way, I'm connected to my superiors, my bosses, my employers, my school, my this, my that. I'm connected to all these things in so many different ways. So where is this entity called God that you're talking about that's supposed to be the only reality? These are the questions that the Gita in all of its 18 chapters tries to solve by approaching it in different ways. But the key idea is just that which is described in the second chapter, that there was never a time when we did not exist. There was never a time when all these, he's facing an army, when all these people that you're now proposing to fight, and you're afraid that you're going to kill them. There's never been a time when these did not exist, and when you did not exist. Of course, the body has come and the body will go, but the essential part, the essence, the reality, the inner core, which is the soul of everything, that has always existed. Okay, that's fine, that's a theoretical idea. You could say, okay, a few great saints and sages may realize that. But how does it affect us? And it may be that, you know, by doing all sorts of impossible spiritual practices, I have to meditate so many hours, I have to do karma yoga, bhakti yoga, you know, all the different yogas I have to do endlessly through my life, and then maybe I'll get a glimpse. And so it doesn't seem very, hopeful, and it doesn't seem terribly important. You're worried about your own life, you're worried about the life of those who gave birth to this body, you're worried about those whom you have, the children that you have gotten, you're worried about past and future, you're worried about everything. And it should be, one should worry about those things. One should. So, Arjuna is told that he should face this conflict, he should face it squarely, he should deal with it energetically, he should do the proper thing, whatever the circumstances are, you have to respond to them properly. We have to do all these things. Everything that we do in our life, everything that we have learned from our parents, from our teachers, from our own experiences, all these things are right, we should do them. But we should do them with the idea that they are symbolic of a far deeper reality that is at the heart of everything. Right now, all we see is the surface of things. We don't see what the reality is. What is the reality of any particular object? Well, you say it's atoms and molecules and this and that, and then physicists give you all sorts of theories as to what constitutes, what is the essence of everything that we see. That's on the physical level, then those things are true, because they can reproduce them and they can understand them very well. But what is the reality of that? There was a discussion in the Radharanyaka Upanishad between, in an assembly of sages, they used to meet together at certain times, certain places, and discuss deep spiritual problems. And so at this one discussion, there was one lady, Gargi was her name, she was one of the great people who had been invited to participate in that discussion. So she asked the leader of that group, the most important sage that was being questioned about all these fundamental ideas, what is it that is the foundation of everything? And the answer was essentially, in the language of those times, it was that essentially atoms and molecules and energy and this and that, what we will call nowadays science, as we understand it, since Einstein and all of these people, that was the answer. Basically, this is what things consist of. And then she kept asking, what is the essence of whatever it is you're talking about? What is the essence of the essence? And then he would, answer, yes, there is a deeper problem, there's a deeper source, and it is this. Then she would ask, what is the source of that? Finally, she came, when he had gotten to the basis of everything, let's say in our modern languages it would be these subatomic particles. She asked him again, what is the basis of that? And basically he said, space is the basis of that. The reality of everything corresponds to its relationship to the space that it occupies. So space is the fundamental substance of everything. Then she asked again, what is the essence of space? Then he said, that is the supreme reality. That is that which is the source of everything, is into which everything merges, the reality, the substrate of the indescribable, the ultimate reality of everything. That is what we call God, the Supreme Spirit, the Supreme Reality. So, at the basis of everything that you consider the basis, there is one unchangeable reality, which is at the basis of everything, at the basis of every human being, at the basis of all animals, at the basis of all manifestations. There is one reality, and when one becomes aware of that, that is the totality, then all questions cease. Because not only the questions cease, the questioner also is absorbed. When the questions will keep going as long as there's a questioner. But when the questioner itself has become infinite, eternal, the source of everything, the essence of everything, there's no further question that can be asked, and there's no further being who can ask such a question. So now we're coming to the very core of the core of reality. And that itself is not some distant realm. That itself, in a sense, is the realm we enter into every night. Because when we're sound asleep, where has this world gone? We don't know. It has disappeared. Dreams may come. That's another world that arises. But there is the best time every night is not when we have fallen asleep, is not when dreams come. It's when we get what is called sound sleep or deep sleep. And what is it that is there at that time? What is it that we're experiencing? You cannot say, because there's no one there to say it, and there's nothing to be said. There's no essence there that you can separate from and to say, you can look at it and say, yes, this is the essence. As soon as you say, this is the reality, you need two things. A person to look and to point to that reality, and then the reality itself. When that all goes, every night, everything simply goes. And this is the best time of our rest. If we don't get that sound sleep for a few days, we get all disturbed inside. What is this? I haven't been able to sleep. But what is it that we're enjoying, and who is it that is enjoying it? When you're sound asleep, do you remember who you are, or what you are, what your origin is, what your source is, what your intention is, your obligations? You don't remember anything. And it's because we don't remember anything, because we rest in that essence, that is considered so desirable and so important that if we don't get it, we take all sorts of medicines in order to achieve a few hours of that experience. Except it is experience in ignorance. In that sense, we don't know, we're not aware of what it really is. We know it's very desirable, but we're not aware of it. What it actually is and how to describe it. But that is the essence that we desperately want every day to partake of. Except we don't think about it because it doesn't seem like anything definite to us, so there doesn't seem to be anything we can talk about. And so we talk about all the things that we can discuss, which are things that you can measure and see and interact with, and you try to improve your life in the context of that. And that is fine, that is excellent, that is what we try to do. But ultimately, what is it that we're aiming for? Ultimately, what we're aiming for is to experience that reality in a knowing way, so that we feel that this is really our own essence. That our own essence is not this body, which changes constantly and which we know one day it has come into existence and one day it will go out of existence. That is definitely understood, and nobody disputes that. So the body is not that ultimate reality. The mind itself comes and goes, is intelligent, and then functions in a non-intelligent way also. So it is not the mind that is what we're really after. What we're really after is that basis, that foundation upon which everything is built. And that foundation is God. Spiritual philosophies of different types call it, give it different names. Brahman or Atman or God or the Supreme Self or the Buddha nature or whatever name we give to it. We're all convinced, really speaking, we're all convinced that there is something very fundamental to us. That's why we feel we're important. There's something very, very fundamental within us, very crucial, which has nothing to do with our surface. What we are on the surface is the result of where we were born, what happened to us as we grew up and so forth. All these things are always mixed, some good, some bad, some advantageous, some disadvantageous. But underneath it all, at the core of it all, there is something within each one of us which was never born and which will never die. This is the message of the Gita. That there is nothing, there is nothing, there is something which is unchangeable and which is fundamental, which was not created and cannot be destroyed inside each one of us. That is the thing that we have to try to reach. You can say you can give it any name you want. You can call it the Atman, you can call it God, you can call it the Buddha nature. Each religion defines it in a different way. But where do all the religions meet? You know, we say that each religion is the perception of a spiritual route to a goal, and that goal is the same. That it's described in different ways, but it is the same. That is one of the basic statements that spiritual philosophy makes. But what is that goal? What is it that we're trying to reach? What we're trying to reach is that thing within each one of us which is eternal. None of us will admit that this inner reality has come into existence at a certain time and will go out of existence at another time. And all the religions make this particular claim that there is a reality which is fundamental, which is the reality present within each one of us or available to each one of us. They phrase it in different ways. And what is meditation? People talk about meditation. Yes, I want to go to meditate. What do they mean by meditation? Various things, so many different things depending on the tradition that they have been introduced to. But the essence of the whole thing is that we want to reach that within each one of us, which is permanent, unchanging, whether we are good or bad, whether we're happy or miserable, whether we're fortunate or unfortunate. There is something within each one of us which has not come into existence because it has always existed, which cannot go out of existence, which cannot die. It was not born and it will not die. What is born and dies is subject to the laws of nature and or the laws of psychology. But there is something within each one of us which was never born and will never die. That is the only message of religion, the only central message. Everything else becomes a detail, how to reach that, how to acknowledge that, how to experience it. So the Gita's basic message comes into this, at the very beginning, when Arjuna, after Arjuna has made his argument that this action that he has to undertake is, he wants to get out of it, and he gives certain reasons which from the ordinary standpoint sound quite reasonable, why he should get out of it, why this whole thing is a total mistake. But Krishna points out to him, first of all, this truth. And it's in this, the first teaching verse, you could say, of the Gita, Na tveva aham jatanasam, na tvam neme janadhipaha. Okay, not to eva aham. It is not that I never existed. It is not a fact that I never existed, not tvam, nor you, not ime, neme janadhipa, these janadhipa. Adhipa is a king, these kings of men. It is not true that there was a time when I did not exist. It is not true that there was a time when you did not exist. It is not true that there was a time when all these kings of men did not exist. And furthermore, there is no time when none of us shall cease to be. That is the first teaching verse of the Gita, and that is the thing that sets the theme for the whole discourse. That within us, the essence within us, has always been and always will be what we normally identify as I is the body or the mind. And those things, obviously, they developed. There was a time when they did not exist. Obviously, there was a time when they shall cease to exist. There was the mind becomes wise and it becomes foolish. It goes up and down. All our life is governed by what happens to our mind and what happens to our body. And then we want a religion that is going to deal with the body and the mind. But the fact of the matter is that we're omitting a very essential part of ourselves. That it is true we have a body, it is true we have a mind, it is true there was a time when we did not have these, and it is true there will be a time when they will cease to be. But there is something within us which is much more essential, which has always been, and which acquires these bodies and acquires these minds. And that brings in the idea of reincarnation, which one may accept or not accept. That is a detail. What is important is to recognize right now within each one of us there is a core which does not change. And what is our obligation? To experience that reality, to experience that core of existence. And that is the message of religion. Here then Krishna goes on to say, Dehi nosmin yatha dehi, the person within the body, just as the person within the body, Kaumaram Yauvanam Jara. Kumar he becomes a child or a youth. He becomes an adult, he or she becomes an adult, and eventually becomes old. In that same way, that entity accepts another body. The body disappears, it's cremated, is buried, whatever. Anyway, the body becomes a thing. Once the living being, living soul leaves it, the body becomes a thing. It is an object. There's no spark of life in it, and then it gets buried or it gets cremated. But the thing, the indwelling spirit, the indwelling spirit again assumes another body. That is one of the key ideas. When that idea is accepted, then one is able to understand this fundamental truth that God alone exists and that spiritual reality has always existed because it is existence itself. It is consciousness itself. Can you point to consciousness within? Can you say what is consciousness within each one of us? It is the essence upon which our life is built is consciousness. And the essence upon which our life is built is existence. And furthermore, not so obvious, the essence upon which our life is built is ananda or joy. And why do we say that joy is, it's okay, if you accept the idea of reincarnation, you can say, yes, the mind, see, because when the body dies, there is no proof that the mind also dies. The dead body, you can see, okay, it's there, and it used to be conscious, it used to react when it was challenged in some ways. So you could say, yes, there's life in the body. The life is gone, it's quite obvious. But what tells you that the mind is gone? What tells you what has happened to the mind? Where was the mind anyway? If you look at a person, can you tell where the mind is? If that person is asleep, you could say nothing about the mind. It's only because that person has life that you make some judgment about the mind. It becomes out. Life means you become obvious to the fact. It becomes obvious to us that there is a mind there. It's not only the body there, but that body is permeated by something more subtle than the physical, and so that is the mind. So when the body dies, what happens to that mind? So you say, well, I mean, the mind disappears, obviously the body is gone. Not so. There have been studies that there was a doctor named Kubler-Ross who made a study of something called the near-death experience, in which a person has been declared clinically dead. In other words, whatever the doctors can measure was negative. That is, breathing and blood pressure and heart and this and that, all these things indicated death. And the doctors have certain ways of measuring or determining whether a person, a being has passed away or not. And then they can sign their name, yes, such and so has passed away. They know that is true. But it has also happened that those who were declared to be clinically dead have revived. And of course, medically, some explanation will be given. But nevertheless, from all external signs, death was declared. And yet life resumed. So there was a doctor who decided to make a study of that. Is when a person has such an experience and is revived again, what did they experience? Was there anything they can talk about, anything they can describe? And they found that there were there were definite signs or definite experiences recorded by people who had been declared clinically dead and then had come back to life. And so they made a study of that. They analyzed it. They found some 15 things that these people all seemed, or most of them seemed to experience. But anyway, they were revived and then their lives went on. And then the question is, what is so far-fetched about the idea of reincarnation, or the fact that when a person is declared clinically dead, their existence still continues? Why do we have to assume that a person that is clinically dead somehow disappears? We cremate the body and then everything is completely gone. The body is gone, no doubt, but the mind, the psychology seems to continue. And in the Hindu tradition, in the same way another body is taken, or can be taken, and the experience goes on. Why do we take another body? Because we want to. We're not finished with what we came here to do, and our life was cut off. And so another body is taken in order to finish. It is we who want it. We want to go on and try to achieve that which we could not achieve in that particular lifetime. So the Gita emphasizes this. You see, as a person, as the embodied soul in this body experiences birth, continuous birth, youth, old age, in that same way, another body is taken, and that experience is renewed. So, dehi nosmin yada dehe, as the embodied being in this body, dehe, kaumar yauvanam jara, that means he's kumar, he's a youth, he grows in jara, old age, in that same way, tata dehandra praptir, in that same way, as another stage, another incarnation is taken. dehantra praptya, dhirastatra mukhyati. Dhiraha, a wise person is not, namukhyati, is not deluded by this. If one is willing to accept that, that actually becomes a profound entry into this idea that our basic aim, our basic purpose here, the reason we're here in this life, the reason we're sitting here and thinking about it and hearing about it, the reason is because we want to realize that true essence of ourselves. We want to realize that presence of God within. We want to realize our Buddha nature. Buddha means awakened, our awakened nature as the Buddhists describe it. They don't talk about God, they talk about this, the awakened being, the awakened nature. So this is the, once one thinks of it in that way, one thinks in terms of one life that comes and goes, then it becomes inexplicable. What are we here for? And maybe we get old and we feel we haven't accomplished anything. Then it becomes problematic and difficult to explain. But if that idea that this is part of a process, and we have been through it many times before, and we've tried to advance, we've tried to become ever more aware, ever more illumined as we progress, and that the goal is to attain that realization. That beyond that, behind that, interpenetrating that which is constantly changing, there is something which does not change. Now that is the heart of all religions. There all religions will agree. At the heart of everything that changes is a reality that does not change. What we have difficulty with is extending it to ourselves, that behind ourselves there is that reality, and whether this body, when this body finally disappears, that reality remains, and another chance comes for us to realize this. That not everyone will accept, but the point is, this one idea, the one central idea of all religions really is this, that behind everything that changes, interpenetrating everything that changes, at the background of everything that changes, there is something which does not change. And one can feel the presence of that. Scientifically speaking, it is a simple analogy is made of the, say, the coordinate system. Anybody who has studied a little bit of science will understand everything is in space, and that space is measured in a certain way, and so the location of everything in this universe is located with reference to a coordinate system, to us saying it is so far from here, so far from there. Longitude and latitude on the earth is a coordinate system. That is, in other words, at the background of everything that changes, there is a reality which does not change. And that reality, when one is identified with that reality, in other words, when that which changes, it has become less real, and that which does not change has become more real, then we say that the realization of God is beginning to penetrate every experience, every thought, every perception of every type is made up of two things. Normally we make the mistake that we think it's only made up of that which changes. So we examine everything in terms of its effect on us, in terms of its effect on everyone else, in terms of the past and the future, in terms of cause and effect. All these things are right, but behind everything there is a reality which never changes, which there's no negativity whatsoever. It is something, because it cannot change, it exists forever. And because our reality is not only physical but also intellectual, in other words, we're not only physical beings, we're also intellectual beings. So there's an intellectual aspect. Behind every physical reality, there is an unchanging reality. Behind every mental concept, behind every idea, at the source of every concept, every concept is described in terms of something which does not change. So there is, behind every physical reality, behind every mental idea, there is something which does not change. The very essence of ourselves, that I, which is the center of our universe, you could say, which is the center of our being, that I, where does that feeling of I come from? Yeah, when I is related to the body, it's obvious. The body was born, the body will grow, the body eventually will pass away. Well, the mind is also an I think of myself as the mind. Yeah, the mind also, it was educated, developed, the mind constantly changes. And at times the mind is not there. In the state of deep sleep, the mind is not there. But there is a reality behind the mind. There is an observer or an observing reality behind the mind. There is consciousness. Now, there are times when you're not conscious, when you're sound asleep, you're not conscious because, and it is that essence that we were trying to reach, which we mentioned earlier. But that which is the essence, which is the source of that consciousness, is something, again, which does not change. So every perception, whether it's physical or mental or emotional, has at its source something whose origin we cannot trace and whose end we cannot describe either. Because what is it that gives birth to consciousness? What is it that can cause consciousness to die? Consciousness waxes and wanes, but it waxes and wanes against a background which is unchanging. So that unchanging reality, if we feel the existence of the unchanging reality, it must be existence. It must be conscious or consciousness itself. And it is pure joy. If you ask yourself, what is it that gives us joy? What is it that gives us ananda, this feeling of joy? You can say, okay, if a great experience comes that I really appreciate, that gives me great joy. But there's also that joy, for instance, in the state of deep sleep when there is no experience whatsoever, and yet there's a tremendous yearning to repeat that experience again. Why do we want to repeat it? There's nothing there we can identify. But there is, when every physical and mental, intellectual object is gone, that is the core of the matter. If you remove all physical objects and all intellectual and mental objects, what remains is pure joy. And the proof of that is that we desire to absorb ourselves in that state every night. That pure joy. So that the basic nature. What is the basic nature of the background of everything? It is existence, it is consciousness, and it is pure joy. So Sat Chit Ananda. So that is what we're really trying to achieve through all the various means and methods that we try to achieve it. And so that is that which Sri Krishna refers to, that source of everything, from which everything comes, within which everything grows, into which everything goes back. The background, the reality that is at the heart of everything that changes, there is a reality which does not change. That is what in religion we call God or the Spirit. And that is our own true nature. And that is the true nature, the reality of every perception. So this is what the Gita starts out by, to counter Arjuna's problem. This is the immediate shock that Sri Krishna gives to Arjuna. Wake up. What you're mourning for is something changeable, but there is a reality here which is what you really want, which is really the essence of everything, which never changes. And that is at the heart of everything.